I'm Wayne, welcome back to Forge of Solace Paints. One of the questions that many people do ask, be it on Instagram or the Discords, is how to thin paints. Well, I think that differs for each individual artist. Personally, I prefer to glaze. But I thought what would be useful is to show you how I prefer to thin my paints and the consistency that I use for different applications. So, let's not beat around the bush, let's get to the painting desk and have a look at that.
So the first thing I'm going to mention is that although I do use straight water, a lot of the time what I use is some boiled water and some airbrush flow improver mixed with a little bit of airbrush thinner, about 50-50 mix into my water. So the paint I'm going to test is Vallejo Beige Red. This is my favourite go-to flesh colour. It's got a really good consistency. It's quite gloopy out of the pot, so you'll see that as we test them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the different consistencies of the paint. So we're getting a little bit of water on there just as a control. So straight away out of the pot, nothing added. You can see it's quite gloopy, quite hard to draw out. It's a good colour, it's got good coverage, and there are occasions when I would use it straight away like this, but not fantastic. So let's just add a little bit of water to it now. As you can see, it's starting to thin down really well. It does take the water or the thinner, whatever you want to use, really, really well. Lets you draw a really nice tip on your brush. You can get some quite detailed lines, and you know, even with just a little bit of water like this, it's perfectly usable. If you're going to use it as a base coat and you've not got much detail, absolutely fine. Just a little touch of water and you're good. Now I've had a little bit more this time. This is where I'd probably be as a start for myself. This is what I'd use as a base coat. So a little bit thicker than some of the airbrush range out of the pot. But again, this would give good coverage. You could get away with one, sometimes two coats, but for the most part, it is still quite opaque. So if you're going over a lighter colour, you probably get away with one coat. I'd definitely almost certainly add another thin coat over the top, but we're probably around a 50-50 mix with the thinner / water in the paint there. Now next up is where I would be normally. This would be my standard go-to layering consistency. So we're probably a little bit more than 50-50 here. We're probably maybe 60-40. And if you look at the back of my nail, see, we've still got good opacity, good coverage, but it's nice and thin. We're not going to clog any detail. Now, next up is what I'd use as a layer. This would be if I'm putting it over something else and I do several thin coats, you're not going to clog any detail here at all. So drawing it out again, we're getting nice detail. We've still got good control of the paint. It's not running all over. Maybe a little bit thinner there. And there we go, that's fantastic. That's exactly where I want to be. That's it, guys. So this is where I'd be normally. So there's no exact science to this. You've just got to keep experimenting because there's so many factors can affect the thickness of the paint. There's no magic 2 drops, 1 drop, whatever the ratio. The age of the paint, how well you've shaken it can affect it. The temperature, there are all these variables. So you just have to go with your own experience. Now, for glazing, this is where I would be. We're adding a lot of water and thinner here. Still, that's probably not enough. Let's just pull it out and have a look. No, it could still go a little bit further. Because this paint can hold a lot of water, I tend to go a little bit further, and I do like to glaze. Because I'm not fantastic at it, I'd rather put on many thin layers because it's much easier to add more than it is to take away. So we're going to draw out, just have a look at how each of the paints react. I'd highly recommend that you do this yourselves as well, guys. So there we can see it's still reacting a little bit. It's too thick, basically. So we're adding a little bit more water. And yeah, now if you look on the back of my nail, it's almost transparent. You can hardly see anything at all. And that's where I am for glazing.
So, I tend to thin my paints a little bit thinner than you would for the standard Games Workshop style, but that's just very specific to how I choose to paint and the style that I've developed. How do you guys thin your paints? What type of consistencies do you use? Let me know down in the comments, let's have a conversation. If you found this video useful, as always, please do give it a thumbs up. If you know somebody else that would find it useful, please share it with them. If you didn't know, I also co-host a podcast called The Drop Pod. It comes out every second Monday. You can find more about that over at thedroppod.info. What I'm trying to do is make high quality content and give something back to the community that's given me so much. Please do interact with it. Let me know what I could do better, what I could do more of. Every bit of feedback is useful to help me improve. So, until next time guys, remember, if you're going to do crap, make sure it's plastic. See ya!